Hi, my name is Dan Clark, and I just want to thank you for coming to this YouTube and checking these things out about the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower organization. And I was a Jehovah's Witness for 40 years, and just thank God I'm out now. I've been out for 11 years, and I'm doing a series on the things that Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower organization, does not want you to know. And today I'm talking about prophecy. They're prophesying, and they're wrong prophecies. And I want to share with you today the reason that I left the Watchtower. After 40 years, I left, and I threw off all those teachings that I had programmed into me since my birth. And I went out on my own individual journey of discovering God for myself. And it's been a wonderful journey. I wrote about it. Well, this book, it's called Eyewitness, the shocking insider story of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is a tell-all book. I tell all the lies, all the ideologies that I live from, the fear and the shame, and so on and so forth. If there's anything that you want to know about Jehovah's Witnesses, you'll find it in this book, and there's appendix in the back that talks about the meetings they attend, how everything's set up, and how everything works. It's a really good book. You can get this book on Amazon, at Amazon, Eyewitness, the shocking insider story. I just want to talk today about why I left and the secret that they don't want anybody to know. In fact, it's just being glossed over. I haven't even seen it really talked about on the internet. And it was the 85-95 prophecy. I think I've heard one person talk about it, but it's the reason I left. In the early 80s, I was given a book like this. It was called Revelation, its grand climax at hand. It was red, it was the same size. This one's called You Can Live Forever in Paradise. But we got this book called Revelation, its grand climax at hand. It was talking about the end, and it actually foretold when the end would come. You know, my dad said for years, he said, it would be all over by 75, boy. And I didn't know what he was talking about. That's before I graduated. I graduated in 77. So he said, it'll be all over, boy, by 75. And I didn't know what he was talking about because I wasn't fully into the witnesses then. You know, I grew up in it, but we missed meetings and we were young. But what he was talking about was his prophecy. His prophecy that the world was going to end with their figures 6,000 years after man's beginning on earth, which would put it to 1975 according to their figures. So my dad was going off of that and living toward that. Well, I came in really serious to the truth in the later 70s, early 80s, really strong. And I got this book handed to me, Revelation, its grand climax. And it said that 70 or 80 years after 1914, which would put us either mid-80s or early 90s, 1990s, that the world was going to end. They said it was based on Matthew 21. Matthew 21 said that this generation would by no means pass away until all these things occur. And it said there'd be earthquakes, food shortages, famines, war, nation rise against nation. And then it says, and then the end would come. And they said this would all happen in one generation of 70 or 80 years, because that's how long a generation is. So they said that 70 or 80 years after 1914 was the generation that would see food shortages, earthquakes, famines, and all these things, and then the end would come. Well, as you know, it didn't. We're in 2010, and I left when I was 40. That was 11 years ago. And the reason that I left was because this book that was supposedly handed down from Jehovah to Jesus to the Watchtower organization and into their printing presses and to the world was wrong. Who was wrong? You know, the witnesses, they call themselves a faithful slave. They said Jesus made him a faithful slave. He appointed him over all his belongings. So this book actually came from Jehovah God, and then it came distributed down through Jesus, and then Jesus gave it to the Anointed Brothers in Brooklyn, and they put it right off right out of the oven, right into the printing presses and sent it out to the world. So this book initially came from Jesus Christ. This book came from Jehovah God, this Revelation book. So I was in love. I wasn't worried about my career. I wasn't worried about school. I wasn't worried about really my family so much. I was worried about preaching and telling everybody that the end was going to come. That's the end of all people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses. That's all Christians, all Buddhists, all Hindus, all Jews, anybody who's not a Jehovah's Witness, anybody who doesn't know the name Jehovah are going to be cut off. So I believe that, and I preach that, and I was fully vested in it. Well, come the early 90s, the brothers announced from the platform that we had some new information, that Jehovah's light has gotten brighter. They didn't say that this book was wrong or that the information that Jehovah and Jesus put into this book was wrong. They said, we have new information, brothers. The light's gotten brighter. We have some new information on this generation thing. So I was very skeptical, and I thought, what is this? And everybody rushed off to the conventions, and they gave out new information. And basically what they said was, the generation of 70 or 80 years is not a generation as we know it. It's different than we interpreted it. Jehovah's illumined more light on the subject, and we can see it better. Well, first of all, they said that this book here came from Jehovah, that this was the truth, this was accurate knowledge. One of the favorite scriptures they love to read to you when they come to your door, and you can mark this down if you want, is John 17:3. John 17:3, it's the one they use for their Bible study, it's the one they use at the door. It says, this means everlasting life. You taking in knowledge of the only true God and of the one he sent forth, Jesus Christ. What they're really saying is, you're going to take in knowledge of this organization, this Watchtower organization, and that's going to be your life. Well, this information in this book was wrong. All wrong. In fact, if you go to the Kingdom Hall and you tell them you want a Revelation book, its grand climax is at hand, they won't be able to give you one. They say that's not published anymore. Why do you want one of those? Well, this was truth at one time. How can God's truth change? How can God's unchangeable self change? How can he say this is truth, believe it or die, which is what we used to say when we went to your door. If you didn't believe this was God's word. And if you didn't believe it, we're kicking the dust off and going to the next door, and God bless you. You know, you're gone, you know. But how can it be truth today? Absolute truth, because the witnesses say they have the truth. We were known as the truth. We're in the truth. And how can it be false? Well, do you know when that information changed on the generation, when they said this generation is going to see the end, do you know when that changed? Do you know there was no apology from that organization? There was no, we got it wrong, brothers. There was a big smile, and they said, we have more light. Jehovah gave us more light. Isn't that sickening? And you know what bothered me the most? That 5 million people continue to still follow and lead blindly. I see the power now of being indoctrinated, fully indoctrinated, going against your will. You wonder why people would drink Kool-Aid and kill themselves. I mean, I wondered sometime if the Watchtower said, hey, you brothers, you know, wear brown today. If everybody wouldn't wear brown. It's right from Jehovah's organization. It's right from Jehovah himself. You know, they probably would. And what else wouldn't they do if that Watchtower told them to do it? It tells them to cut off their families. It tells them to do a lot of things already. These people are fully indoctrinated. They saw the same thing that I did. They saw the misinformation. They saw the false prophecy. You know, the Bible itself says that if someone prophesies and it doesn't come true, do not listen to these ones. It sounds like common sense. But if you went to a convention with Jehovah's Witnesses, you'd see cars wrapped around these stadiums, these big stadiums completely full. Fully indoctrinated people, blind, not thinking for themselves. They need to think for themselves. This is something that the Watchtower organization will never, ever tell you, that prophecy passed by. No apologies, no nothing. There wasn't no apologies for my dad when he died in the early 80s. He died of shame and fear. He couldn't even get up off the floor. He allowed himself to get 500 pounds. He was so depressed. Jehovah only wants your best, he was told. If you're not giving your best in Jehovah's, it's not acceptable. Well, my dad didn't think he did his best because he worked out of town. And all of us boys sort of went wayward. And so he died. He died of shame. My mother is still in the mental ward today. Fearful that Jehovah's going to kill her. That's what she said the last time I saw her. Jehovah's going to kill me. Jehovah's going to kill me. It's a terrible thing. So I just want to tell you, if you know somebody studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, you better check it out. You better talk to that person. You better tell them to go to the internet and do some research about that organization. Look at some of the castles those anointed brothers lived in at the time of the Depression. You know, while the world, people were sleeping on buses and stuff, they had mansions they were living in, those higher up brothers, so to speak. People don't know this. They're told not to look at the internet. They're told not to look at anything on there. It's poison. It's not poison. You can think for yourself. So anyway, that's why I left. There was no apology. There was no nothing. I'd put 40 years of my life on hold for this end of the world, not contributing in any way other than going door to door, preaching, making 5 meetings a week. So I just want to share that with you. That's something that the Jehovah's Witnesses will never tell you. They'll never tell you about those past prophecies. They'll never bring them up in the pages of the Watchtower or nothing. They'll never admit that they were wrong. They never admit that what they called once truth is now a lie. You can't even find the book anymore. Go try to find it in the Kingdom Hall. Revelation, its grand climax at hand. It was my favorite book at one time. I lived from it. I breathed from it. Not the Bible, was it? Just more of this stuff. So anyway, that's it, and I look forward to talking to you on the next video and sharing more things that the witnesses will never, ever talk about. Thank you.